Hey guys, it's Chris here. Welcome to another video. It's fall here, the trail running season is ending and holidays are coming up, and I thought it might be a good time to make a trail running gear review. What trail running gear I recommend having as a beginner, what I recommend having as an ultra runner, and the things I can't run without. So we'll start with the beginner ultra running gear. I always recommend having really good trail running shoes. So trail running shoes are the first thing you need to purchase as a trail runner. You know, you might have some running gear, sports gear out there. If you start on short trails, you can start with regular running gear, but trail running shoes is really important to have. Thing I would recommend when looking for a trail running shoe is it needs to fit really good with your foot. I always recommend having shoes that fit well. You'll be running trails, pounding them on the downhills. So a really good fit is going to be really important. What's also really important is when you're looking for trail running shoes is that it has a really good outsole. Here we have an example. This would be the Nike Zoom X Sagama 2. It's a pretty good trail running shoe. You can see here it has a really good outsole. It has a Vibram outsole. Vibram is a separate company that makes outsoles for trail running shoes. They're very, very popular because they have a really good grip on technical terrain if it gets wet. Really important to have a good outsole. The reason is that if you run around on trails, you might slip, twist your ankle. So that's why it's really important that you have good grip. This one has a gaiter as well. If you run in terrain that's a little bit sandy, can help really good as well. So it really depends on what terrain you're going to run in, what kind of trail running shoe you need. For beginners, I recommend a trail running shoe that has a little bit of a higher stack height, where you have more cushioning. Your legs might not be used to running on the trails, running on the downhills, so a little bit more cushioning. If you run on very technical trails on the high alpine region, I recommend having a shoe that has a little bit of a lower stack height, that's more stable, so you won't twist your ankle that easily. And yeah, a good trail running shoe is really important. I'm sure you can find some really good deals out there. You don't have to get the latest trail running shoes that have carbon plates, the best foam out there, which cost about 250 euros. You can find some good deals. I'm sure you can get trail running shoes for about 100 euros or $100. Even if it's last year's model, there are some really good shoes out there. I'll put some examples on the description. So the second piece of gear I recommend as a trail runner is to have a good trail running vest. A trail running vest is really important for me because I can put all my gear inside. First and foremost, I always add 2 flasks of water. Usually one filled with water, one filled with electrolytes. Staying hydrated during your runs is really important. Even if they're short runs, staying hydrated will keep your performance up. If you get dehydrated, it will be more tiring for you. And that's why staying hydrated is really important. And with the trail running vest, you can put the flasks in here and they hold really well and they won't bother you too much. Yeah, so a good trail running vest is really important. There are different models out there. There are some models which have a little bit less volume. This is a Salomon trail running vest with about 12 liters of volume. If you're new to trail running, you can get a smaller one, which is a little bit lighter. I personally would go for the bigger trail running vests if you think you might get into longer runs in the future. I bought a small trail running vest for my first ultra marathon. And soon enough, after a year or so, I had to get a bigger one because it just wasn't big enough for my gear when I started running longer ultras. If you run longer ultras, you'll have mandatory gear where you have to bring a lot of clothing. We'll get to that in a second, but then the smaller vests might just be too small. So with all the mandatory gear, you need extra trousers, rain jacket, mid-layer. That it'll just be more comfortable if you have a bigger vest. So if you think you might get into longer distances, get the bigger versions. I definitely recommend it. So the second piece of gear I recommend as a beginner would be to have a good rain jacket with you. Depending on what region you're trail running in, what part of the world. Here in the Alps, if you're in the mountains, it's always recommended. If you're hiking, trail running, and you're out there for a longer period of time, it's always recommended to have a good rain jacket with you. This is the Bonatti from Salomon. It's a pretty good rain jacket. It's light, not too heavy. So as you could see, it's really packable. It doesn't bother too much. It's lightweight. And I always bring it with me, no matter what the weather. If the storms come later in the afternoon and it starts raining, I have some protection for me. And yeah, if you are a trail runner that runs in high alpine regions in the mountains, I recommend having a mountain jacket with you. And something like this might not be good enough. A 3-layer mountain jacket and might be recommended if you live in the high alpine regions. And then the larger trail running vest might come in handy there. So the fourth piece of gear, I know it's not too special, but I always recommend having as a beginner with you, or even if you're an advanced trail runner, is to have a first aid kit with you. First aid kit is really important. A lot of ultra runs, if you run longer distances, will have it as a mandatory gear on the mandatory gear list, so you'll have to bring it anyway. But even so, if you're not racing, I recommend bringing it, just in case you scrape your leg, something happens, you fall down, you catch yourself on the wrist, and you might bleed a little bit. I used it once already. I was on the trails, I slipped, I was able to catch myself with the hands, and I was bleeding a little bit. So a first aid kit is really important. I recommend getting one. These are really small, they don't cost much. You can throw it in your backpack, in your trail running pack, and you'll have it there with you all the time. So yeah, really important. Those are the beginner trail running things I recommend to get as a beginner. Good trail running shoes, having a good vest, a jacket with you, and then a first aid kit. And with your vest you can bring gear such as food, water, which can be important out there. So now I'd like to speak about the things I always like to bring with me as an ultra runner, the things which I think are really important to have if you're running very, very long distances. So the first piece of gear I recommend having as an ultra runner would be to have some anti-friction gel with you. I always bring the anti-friction gel before the race and during the race. I put it on the hot spots I usually have when running long distances. I usually put it on my foot before I put my trail shoes on, and during the run I also usually add some more, just to keep the friction at bay, because if you run long distances you can get blisters, and they can slow you down really badly in an ultra marathon. They can even cause you to DNF. So yeah, anti-friction gel is really important. I don't have any with me now, but I'll put some. I'll show you the ones I usually have. And with anti-friction gel, if you run long distances, it's just keeps everything smooth, and you hopefully won't have any problems with blisters. In talking about blisters, that's where we come to our next piece of gear. What I always recommend having is some very good trail running socks. It really depends on the socks you wear. If you run long distances, how your foot is gonna hold up. The shoe is really important, but the socks are just gonna be as important as well. I can speak from experience. I usually like to buy the Ingenie socks. They're made of very good material, and they just feel comfortable. So yeah, you can't just run with any kind of cheaper sports socks. Having good ultra running socks that are meant for long distances is really going to help you out. What I also recommend having as an ultra runner is to have a very good watch with you. I have the Suunto 9. It's an older model, but I've had this one for years, and it hasn't let me down. If you're a beginner trail runner, we all have smartwatches. I use the Apple Watch for if I go on short runs out there, up to an hour. If I run in the mountains for 2-3 hours, I always bring my Suunto, because it just lasts a lot longer. With smartwatches out there today, they last with the activity on. You won't have enough time if you run for 10, 20 hours or so. This is where a good sports watch will come in handy. And the Suunto has good models. Garmin, there's a lot out there. So investing in good. You don't have to buy a new one. You can buy some good used ones out there. The batteries hold up pretty well, but I could never go without my Suunto 9 on the trails. So that's really important. Yeah, having a good smartwatch. You can even put a GPS on there, a GPS track, in case you need to find a path. You won't get lost. So that's always recommended. So one piece of gear I always bring with me on my ultra runs is having a really good mid-layer. This is Evadict. It's from Decathlon. It's a really good mid-layer. It keeps me really warm. I have a lot of mid-layers at home. This one here from Nike, but they don't keep me as warm as this one here. If you're an ultra runner, you run long days, long hours in the mountains. Eventually you'll run at night and you will get cold. That's where a good mid-layer is going to be really important. You can use your mid-layer, wear a jacket over it, and that's going to keep you warm. So this is a really piece of important gear. I know it's nothing special, but having a good mid-layer on your ultra runs is really worth a lot. So yeah, I always bring this one with me. Keeps me warm. If you get too cold out there, you're going to be in trouble. So having a good mid-layer is really important. And yeah, see what works for you. Try your gear out when you run. That's the most important part. You might have purchased it already, but you got to test it before you race. And if it works for you on your training runs, most likely, or hopefully it'll work when you start racing. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is fueling. Having good electrolytes is important, but also what's really important is you need to bring your calories. Your calories, your sugar, carbohydrates are really important. I just can't run on my long runs without them. You know, if I fuel well during my long runs, I recover better. My muscles don't break down too much. You know, you're less prone to be injured, and it's going to be really important on race day as well. If you're going to go into ultra marathons, you know, 40K up to 100 miles, you're going to have to be fueling really well. These are the things I use. The CIS Beta Fuel. This is a 40-gram carbohydrate gel. I've talked about fueling before. I always preach on fueling, that how important it is for your running. You have GU gels here. They're a little bit sweet, and what I recommend always having is a drink mix, a carbohydrate drink mix. This one's from Morton. You can find a few out there. I found this one to be pretty good. Drink mix is really important because after a while, you know, a couple hours, you've had a lot of gels. You might want to switch to carbohydrate drinks. And yeah, as always, you know, you got to test your gear, see how it works for you. But having a good fueling system, bringing gels with me on my long runs, even if it's not for a race, is really important. And if you fuel well, you know, you'll feel good, feel better on your runs. You can bring some gels with caffeine. Those are the things I would recommend having as an ultra runner. You know, holiday season is coming up. You might find some good deals out there. You know, get some good trail running gear and get ready for the next year, 2025. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Please tell me in the description what gear you need as a trail runner, what's important for you. Did I miss anything? You know, you have a lot of things like sunglasses, maybe you need a head torch. Usually the ultra runs are going to have a mandatory gear list where you will have most of the stuff you need on the mandatory gear list. So let me know what you guys think. What's your favorite gear? What gear you can't run without? And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy your holidays, and we'll see you next year.